I should just warn you that our next story contains references to suicide and self-harm. The parents of a teenager who took his own life are suing OpenAI, accusing its chatbot, ChatGPT, of encouraging their son to end his life. Matt and Maria Rain say their son Adam formed a relationship with the bot and that they discussed suicide over the course of several months. This wasn't the first case of a vulnerable person dying by suicide after talking to an AI chatbot. OpenAI recently published a note on its website in response, saying the recent heartbreaking cases of people using ChatGPT in the midst of acute crises weigh heavily on us. It went on, ChatGPT is trained to direct people to seek professional help. But the OpenAI note also revealed there have been moments when our systems did not behave as intended in sensitive situations. The company says it will address ChatGPT's shortcomings. Well, these cases raise fundamental questions about the future of AI. How can chatbots be programmed to be more supportive in moments of crisis? How can they be made to recognize when they should pass things along to a real person with expertise? There are also concerns about how we interact with artificial intelligence. As AI grows in popularity, people are turning to this technology for therapy, emotional support, and for companionship. Experts have warned of the dangers when vulnerable people open up to AI about their anxiety and distress instead of seeking professional help. My next guest is a bereaved mother who recently published an essay in the New York Times about her experiences. It was called What My Daughter Told ChatGPT Before She Took Her Life. Well, that mother is Laura Reiley. She's a writer at Cornell University and a former journalist. Welcome to DW, Laura. Can we start with what happened to your daughter, Sophie?
She was a life liver, a big personality, had never had any mental health challenges. She quit her job at the beginning of June to climb Mount Kilimanjaro and to do a yoga intensive month-long training in Thailand and to visit a bunch of the American national parks. And upon returning, she was complaining of anxiety and sleeplessness. A couple months later, she had had some blood work done that revealed a hormone panel that was completely out of whack. And we were pursuing all kinds of avenues to find out precisely what was going on, whether this was a mental health problem that was impacting her hormones or a hormonal dysregulation that was causing some mental health concerns. What we didn't realize was that she was acutely suicidal during a lot of this. She did not tell us, she did not tell her therapist or her best friends. What she did do was reveal this exclusively to ChatGPT.
And why then? How did you come to turn to this chatbot after you lost her? What made you think that AI might be involved?
Her best friend came to visit us for a weekend, and she actually works in AI, and came to me and said, "Can I just check one more thing on her laptop?" And I thought, yes, I would like to stop thinking about the laptop as this kind of cache of forensic evidence about what must have gone wrong. So I said, sure, have at it. Let's see what you can find. And she came out of the room about an hour later with a funny look on her face. And I said, you found something? And she said, yes, her ChatGPT log. And it was extensive, and it started months prior with just using it as a Google search agent, kind of who are the Visigoths, or who has mineral rights in Antarctica, or I want to make a kale smoothie, and escalated from there to I am having extreme anxiety and depression. I am going to kill myself after Thanksgiving. And ChatGPT responded with many things that a flesh and blood therapist would respond with, but it was also deeply insufficient in a number of ways.
Okay. So what do you want then to happen now in terms of this technology and guardrails to be put in place?
Well, I am absolutely not among the many people who believe that this technology is exclusively and universally bad. I think that it is here to stay. I think that as a mental health, as either a personal trainer or life coach or therapist, millions of people are relying upon it for these reasons now. And I think the cat is out of the bag on that front. So we need to put in some very specific guardrails, and then people smarter than me will have to figure out the rest. But for instance, in my case, ChatGPT assisted Sophie in writing a suicide note. And I think that that is something that very easily could be prohibited, that we could say, absolutely not. It should not assist you with committing suicide. It should not assist you with writing a note. I think there should be very easy one-touch access to human helplines. I think that ChatGPT and all of the AI chatbots should frequently remind users of its AI limitations and of its non-personhood. I think that it gets very easy for the lonely to lean into it as if it's a sentient being. And I think we need reminders about that. I also think that there should be crisis prevention protocols and perhaps de-escalation frameworks, things that actually alert civil authorities that someone is at risk of harming themselves or others. I think that that could be built in, although I do have questions about how many people might not use chatbots if there were that introduced idea of,
Just on that idea, we heard in that note from OpenAI, they say ChatGPT is trained to direct people to seek professional help, things like the 988 suicide and crisis hotline in the US or the Samaritans in the UK. So they say that's in place, but clearly you believe it's insufficient.
It is insufficient. If you go into chat, if you started a chat right now, at the beginning, if you said you were suicidal, it would say, reach out to a friend, reach out to your parents, call 988. It would say those things. But the deeper you went into this conversation, the less it leans into that, and the more it has the tendency to go off the rails and say things that are deeply inappropriate. So this is a chronic, I've heard from hundreds of users of ChatGPT and bereaved parents and spouses saying, my beloved went down this rabbit hole and was relying on this tool, 8, 10, 12 hours a day.
Right.
And the logs are pretty alarming in terms of what it will respond with.
So here's the thing about that idea, though. Is that something that you want technology companies to do off their own bat, or should they be forced by legislation to do that? Because this technology is developing at a staggering pace.
Well, in my mind, it's a consumer product that is malfunctioning in some regard. So it is no different than, the Fisher-Price pack and play or some of the consumer products that have been taken off the market. So I think it's inevitable that it will be legislated. I think that the number of lawsuits that are coming down the pike, I've talked to a number of people who are in the process of filing suit. So that's often in many countries what prompts legislators to start regulating something. So I think it is inevitable that these things are put in place. And I think these companies should want to work with the mental health community to put in these guardrails. It's in their best, it's in everyone's best interest. And if they don't have a lot of psychiatrists, psychologists on staff now, they soon will. Except
that we have seen, for instance, here in the EU has legislation that's a year old. They've introduced these legislation restrictions based on what they call the perceived risks of this technology. And as a result of that, we've seen Donald Trump in recent weeks threatening to impose more tariffs on countries that he sees as affecting US tech companies in this way. So This isn't going to happen without a fight, it would appear.
Certainly, but with products like these, they transcend any borders. And in terms of country of origin, it's a very complicated stew. So I think that this is something that will see significant legislation, whether it's on a country by country basis. I think that we're around the corner from some changes, whether they're self-imposed or imposed upon them. I think that we will see them.
Thank you so much for joining us, Laura. Laura Reiley.
Thank you.